How's it going, guys and girls? I'm Chris Kiefer. Welcome in. It's a beautiful day here at Glen Helen Raceway. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. It's starting out well for us. I got Jamie Ellis to the right of me from Twisted Development, and I have a 2025 Kawasaki KX250, and this is this month's Racer X Garage build. So I brought Jamie here today. As you guys know, Loretta Lynn season is upon us. Area qualifiers have started. Regionals are coming up. And my son, Aiden Kiefer, is actually going to start riding again. Let's say it's been about a year. He's been hurt, but I get a lot of emails sent to me asking me, Kiefer, what do I do to my KX250? This year in 2025, I feel like my bike is a little bit slower than 2024. So I brought the man himself, the guy who builds Ken Roxon's engines, Club MX engines. What else am I missing?
Bar X Yamaha.
Bar X Yamaha. I mean, the list is long and distinguished. So Jamie went to work, tore this thing down for us, and I thought, you know what, why not do a garage build on this? So let you guys know what he did and give you some specs inside this engine. So Jamie, take it away.
Okay, so what we do with any project is we start with the crankshaft, right? You have to build the house on a good foundation. So we work with Crankworks in Tempe, Arizona, and they have a better bearing that we believe. You know, this is a plain bearing rod setup, so it doesn't have the cylindrical rollers like some of the other brands do. So that bearing is ultra important. To my knowledge, there's not been a problem with the stock Cowie rod braking, so it's not like we have to replace it based on sheer braking, but I do like that upgraded bearing, so that's the primary reason. So we start every Cowie project with that. We have a rim finishing machine in-house, so we polish the whole transmission. That just takes all the burrs off of everything, makes everything shift nicer. Fractional in horsepower at best, but you know, on your best engines, you would do it. And then, you know, piston, so like whenever you build a motor project, the power is going to come from the piston up typically. That's the crown of the piston, the camshaft profiles, the compression, the head porting. That is going to be your big group of power where most of it is going to come from. So the bottom end underneath the piston is typically fractional at best, but however, we would do it to our best running engines.
Stock compression compared to what we have now?
So we are a couple points higher on compression.
Okay.
Our biggest thing at the shop, more so than compression numbers, we look for clearances between valve to piston, piston to head, the dome, you know, to the dome of the piston. So that is our static numbers that we're constantly looking at in every build. So we typically know where our margins are, where we can tighten everything up, and then that typically would bring more horsepower, you know, by making the piston more aesthetically fit to the, you know, the profile of the cylinder head and cams and all that stuff. So that kind of gets us in through the motor platform of it. And then I think the Williams Motor Works is the guy that you had got the intake kit from. So yes. These Kawasaki's come with a lot smaller of a air filter setup for 24 KX450, 25 250. Yeah. So using the 2018 Honda CRF 250 filter in this kit, it was really easy to install. Bolted right in, and we did back-to-back it, and it was a performance increase on the dyno. So again, you wouldn't leave that behind if you were trying to build one of your better engines.
Right.
So pairing that with a better intake system, better exhaust system, you know, the bike actually snapped right back into line to where we were with our last year's bikes. And even a little bit different of a power curve, where this power curve is a lot more full, and it doesn't have the kind of some of the tuning peaks that you can experience whenever you vent an airbox too much. So I'd say with the airbox design different, new second injector for 25, so the phasing between front and rear injector was ultra important with this bike. And as you can see, we have all the data electronics on it today. So when we're out there today, we're going to be logging GPS and engine air temperature sensor, as well as the AFR in the pipe, and making those changes to optimize our setup for the 2025 season.
And what's cool about that is Jamie can actually pinpoint exactly where I'm talking about on the track. If I say, hey, I need a little bit more power here, or I feel a little bit of a dirty ECU feel here, he can actually say, okay, we're at on the track. He can go back on his logger and see exactly where that air fuel is, and you can adjust from there, correct?
Or if he says, dude, I'm wide open, and I can see he's 70% throttle.
Exactly.
So it'll expose.
Other trinkets that my son uses on his bikes, of course, Renthal grips, handlebars, 839. We do go to a 1351 gearing ratio with a DID chain. Mark over at REP Suspension done up a set of forks and a shock. It's just a simple revalve with some springs. And Basically, it's pretty minimal. We have a gut seat cover, pro circuit exhaust, not a lot of bling, but I'm more looking for reliability out of a modified engine. That question goes to you.
Yep.
What's the timeout hour amount here on this bike?
So the first thing that's going to time out would be the piston.
Okay.
So the more you use a piston hour-wise, it's getting softer and softer and softer. So every time it heats up, it gets softer over its time. So I would probably think between 20 and 25 hours, we'd probably need to have a look at this piston on the Rockwell hardness gauge to see at the rate of what it's wearing. And it's also subject to life of the engine. Like if you ride it in mud races every weekend in England or something, it's probably going to get hotter and anneal faster than it would be on a soft track like Glen Helen.
And we're using a hyperactive B-class kid that likes to rev his bike, or he thinks he want to be Justin Barsha. You've seen it. I wish Simon could input of a sound bite of my kid right before he lands. He's wide open. You don't need to do that, kids out there. You don't need to do that. Yeah. Save your dad some money and don't rev the shit out of your motor, kids. Relax. You're not going to gain any more time. Listen to Jet. You can't hear him. He's still going fast. So relax. And of course, as you know, high compression piston motor work, you're going to have some fueling. So
VP Pro 6 is the choice of build. It's nice for performance. It's nice because I know this bike is eventually going to make it back east for some East Coast testing. So maybe T4 might be a little bit more financial. So you can kind of go between those two fuels a little bit better. So I chose Pro 6 for this build.
The 2025 KX250 in stock form, to me, is down on torque feel. Doesn't feel like as snappy as the 2024. The airbox has changed. It's very restrictive compared to last year. Like he said, you got to kind of get some more air in there. And then for me, I really wanted just to get some more torque for Aiden out of the hole. You got these lightweight 120-pound kids. Aiden's like an adult now in this class. He's 145 pounds, 150 pounds, so he's going to have to get out of the hole really quick. So guess what, Aiden? Pops is going to ride your bike today and test it out. I'm going to guide you in the right way with the help of Jamie Ellis from Twisted Development. Stand by. We're going to come back, and I'm going to give you the lowdown and give you a little bit of feel from what it's like to ride this bike to a stock one. Be right back. Okay guys, that wraps it up here at Glen Helen Raceway today, and the old 47, not a Levi Kitchen edition. This is a Twisted Development AK-47, that's Aiden Kiefer 47 bike. This is actually my test bike that we wanted to transform into a little bit more of a local race machine for Aiden. So of course you heard Jamie talk about all the stuff that he's done. And for me, when I rode the KX250 earlier, I think it was last year, at the end of last year, I like the chassis a lot. For me, there's more front end traction on this bike, just like the 450. I can't believe how well this Kawasaki corners. I would have to venture to say that this is probably the best cornering 250 that I have ridden. Yes, even over a Honda. So what I really wanted was just some more torque. Look I don't ride 250Fs. I'm 175 pounds. I don't need my big old behind on this thing, but I can tell you what, you can probably rewind all these videos that I've done. I've said probably on more than one hand, it's probably some of the most fun I've had on a bike was X bike. Well, this is kind of that same thing for me. When you have a really good, healthy, torquey 250, it is a blast to ride, guys. So even if you're a vet guy, I know we just did a Husqvarna FC 250 with a vet rider not too long ago, and he loves riding a 250. This thing is no different. So Jamie talked about the engine being like 25 hours of engine time that you can put on it until you rebuild it. And that is in the world of a B-class skid, hyperactive. But if you're a vet rider and you're not revving the crap out of it, which you don't need on this bike, you can go probably upwards 35, 40 hours from what Jamie was telling me earlier today. So what is the big difference with this package? So what you're getting now is such a healthier second gear pulling power. Look, you're going to have to downshift the second gear on the 250F, and you want it to pull fairly far down the straightaway. That's kind of what I'm looking for, right? So I got on this bike, headed up towards Talladega, Glen Helen, and I couldn't believe how long second gear pulled. And usually when I lit off of second gear, I get a crap ton of engine braking. This thing is so free off throttle that it doesn't upset the chassis. Now, this suspension spec from REP is meant for a 145-pound B rider, not a 175-pound lazy vet rider. But nonetheless, I could not believe how much power this thing had rolling the throttle on in second gear, and then how much fun that felt towards me. And then when you roll off the throttle, you expect a lot of deceleration or engine braking, and you just don't get that. So I'm like, okay, a few more laps out there with Simon. Shifting to third gear early, not a problem. Again, 1351 gearing, now with this new healthy bottom end, it is a pleasure and very fun bike to ride. I cannot believe how much of a change it is to ride this bike from the stock bike I rode last week. It is a huge difference, huge. You guys at home could probably get a stock bike and put this bike next to it, and you could be able to feel the difference within a half a lap. This is how noticeable this change is. So for me, second and third gear pulling power is extremely long, easy, friendly to use. And what I like, especially for Jamie, look, I've done a lot of builds with Twisted Development, and let's face it, he builds really fast engines. I like more of a torquey, smoother, not want to say linear, because that kind of sounds slow on a 250, but just a healthy, longer pulling 250. I told Jamie today, this is the best 250 that I have ridden that he's built. And that's a compliment. And usually I'm pretty hard on Jamie. We're out here all day doing ECU testing, and I'm pretty picky, but he actually nailed the ECU setting on the first try. It's not on-off throttle for me as I'm rolling into a corner. And here, when you have shallow ruts and you're trying to modulate that throttle, that is very important. That's one thing I didn't want for Aiden. I didn't want him to have this whole jumpy throttle or really reactive throttle, because it really upsets the chassis and then that messes up your corner. It doesn't have that. It has a connection that I haven't felt from a KX250 ever. So, and I've ridden quite a few of them. I actually rid Ryder DiFrancesco's older KX250 when he was an amateur, and I would say this rivals that and then surpasses that with how long the feeling is. So Jamie did a great job of getting that extra amount of torque, that longer pulling power, and just a fun, free feeling 250 that's very playful. Look, I don't think I could do it justice here today. Track's very busy, so excuse the mess in the videos, but what I gathered here today, that it is a very fun machine. It's gonna get plenty of good starts with Aiden's, what we call DNR. If you guys know what DNR is, you can read between the lines. That's all Aiden is. And getting off the line in second gear is gonna be very easy for him, because he can actually use that second gear very far down the straightaway and then shift, so he doesn't have to shift right away. That's important. So overall engine, the most impressive 250 engine that I've felt from Jamie, and from what he tells me, he's not done with it. So let's hope he doesn't go too much more where it's hard to handle and hard for Aiden to ride, but this is actually really nice. Little quick insight here, Aiden hasn't even ridden yet, and I'm trying to ride this thing to shake it down for him, so he doesn't even know I'm here today riding it. So it's gonna be a surprise for him to actually get on this thing and tell him, hey man, you're a spoiled brat, because this thing is impressive. I remember when I was 18 years old, I didn't have crap. My dad flipped the tires around. I had welded up frames, so he's a spoiled you-know-what. Mark and the guys at REP, from what I've gathered, is pretty soft for me, but it does move more like a KYB fork than I've ever felt from Showa suspension. I think I mentioned this on the Honda Works Edition, how free feeling this Showa stuff is on that bike. Well, this is kind of mimicking that, follows the ground really well. It moves a lot. I think I would probably make it a little bit more dead feeling and not have a very active suspension. But for me, follows the ground well, and it works well here at Glen Helen, so I'm excited for him to try it. Only thing I did is drop this fork down to 2 millimeters, and of course the sag is going to be a little bit low for me when I ride it, but it follows the ground well, and from what I've gathered, and I talked to the Showa guys, moving forward, their settings are going to be a little bit more active and not as dead feeling. So that is great news for comfort. So a little bit of faster moving Showa suspension, get a little bit more comfort, I'm all for it. One thing I would change that we didn't change, I would change this clutch lever. I know a lot of ARC, Aiden really a fan of an ARC lever or an ASV lever. I prefer this type of material on the Guts ribbed seat. He has a couple different types of material. This is less abrasive. You guys hear me talk about the seat a lot from Guts. I do prefer this seat. If you guys want to know more about it and what exactly is it, you can email me. But overall, man, I'm excited for Aiden to ride it. It's a very fun build. If you're looking for a 250 that you need a little bit more meat, look no further than Twisted Development. He does great work. I mean, look, they're all over the paddock. His engines are, I don't know, man. He has so many guys on his stuff. Maybe you don't even know who's riding, but Jamie has probably touched over 50% of the riders in Supercross today. So he knows a thing or two about Kawasaki's. And of course, Mitch Payton, Pro Circuit. This is probably the best muffler that I've tried. I've tried a Pro Circuit, a Yoshimura, and an FMF. Pro Circuit gives you a little bit more bottom end and mid range, which this thing needs if you're gonna stock KX250 form. And overall, just a fun build for me to ride, and yeah, a little bit jealous, a little bit envious of Aiden. So if you have any questions, chris@KieferInkTesting.com if you want to know more about this. We're going to break down pricing and probably a little bit more behind the scenes on the engine on my YouTube channel. If you don't go there, subscribe. It's Kiefer Ink Testing as well. There's going to be more stuff that we're going to do with the KX250 right here on RacerXOnline.com. And of course, as always, ride hard, ride safe. We'll see you next month. Another garage build. See you later.